Hi there, friends. I'm Vasco. I'm part of the team behind the first global Scrum Master Summit. If you're a Scrum Master, the Scrum Master Summit is a place to learn, to share, and to meet new friends. We will have lots of live sessions where you can meet and network with other Scrum Masters from all over the globe. So make sure you check it at bit.ly/SM Summit and the numeral 21. That's bit.ly/SMSUMMIT21. We have 7 amazing keynotes or more, as we are still organizing the conference as I record this, and 8 tracks that feature people like you and thought leaders sharing their insights and knowledge to help you become an awesome Scrum Master. So once again, check it out at bit.ly/SM Summit 21. That's all lowercase, all one word, SM Summit and the numeral 21. I'll see you on the virtual conference floor. All right, now on to the show. Hello everybody, welcome to our Wednesday Leading Change episode, this week with Serge Huybrechts. Hi Serge, welcome back.
Hey Vasco.
So we want to dive into change, and today we want to hear a story of a change process you were involved with. But especially as you tell us that story, do highlight for us those tools, the tips, the tricks, the techniques you learned back then about change and change leadership that you still apply today.
Yeah, I love the subject because I think it's something I learned over the years, how important it is to acknowledge change and the importance of it and to deal with it. So I'm very happy that we can touch on the subject. So the story is I worked for a bank here in Belgium that was switching from a traditional waterfall approach into a Scrum and DevOps way of working. So they mixed practices from Scrum and DevOps together, and that was their big change. And my role was to help them in their release process because they were going to release a new mobile app. So I was helping them to look at the process, redefine it, cut through a lot of red tape and a very, very rigid release process at the time. So that was basically my role, like help them in that Scrum DevOps transition for the release management process. And so what I realized quite quickly is that the operational people that were involved in that transition were quite worried about what this transition would mean for their job. Because in DevOps, we have a continuous deployment, continuous integration thing, which kind of cuts away a rigid administrative release process. So they were a bit afraid. No, they were quite afraid actually that change would make their job obsolete. And I think that even was true to some extent. But this brought them into resistance, and it really blocked a lot of conversations. And so one of my favorite tools or framework that I still use in change management is ADKAR from ProSci. It's quite a pragmatic and simple framework. It's basic, but I love the basicness and the pragmatism around it because it gives you like I say, a framework you can work against. So when I realized the resistance from those people, I just dug into the ADKAR framework again and went to talk to leadership. And then we used that as a backbone. So we started with leadership again, explaining what are we going to do and why are we going to do it. From that, we had conversations with those worried people and really listened to their worries. Like really listen to, okay, what's blocking you? How do you feel about this? What does this mean for you? What are your worries? And this created this kind of positivity around it. Not that it was solving their worries, but at least that the people were being heard. And to some extent that the manager reached out even to HR. And then we started involving HR to see how we could guide those people in developing the new skills that they needed for the Scrum DevOps way of working. And for others that were, they were going to be redundant to some extent, we actually involved HR to help them find a new suitable role for them. So in there, we used that ADKAR part, the first two letters are awareness and desire. So we talked about the what and the why for the awareness, and then worked on the resistance part in listening to their worries and helping them to go through these blocking points.
Absolutely. It's a great story also about the fact that we as Scrum Masters need to be completely aware that sometimes the change has impact on people who, it's not us, it's other people. And if we don't understand that impact from their perspective, not what we think the impact is, but what they think the impact is, we can't really work them through a change process.
Yes, absolutely. I've learned that for a lot of people, change means fear, and it's most of fear for the unknown. And I think that making the unknown known and understanding what that means for them is super important. Yes.
Yeah, that's a great point because change does bring unknown to people in the organization. We might not be aware of whom or why it's unknown because we have, as they say, the curse of knowledge. We know the change, we know why it's there, we even are ready to help, but not everybody is at that stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this brings to a very important point in change, which I also got from the ADKAR framework, is that change is individual. Everybody goes through that change cycle individually. And it's a hard nut to crack because it's hard to talk to everybody individually, but to keep in mind that every single person has their own worries and their own way of looking at it. And being attentive to that, I think, is very important.
Absolutely. This story actually reminds me of something that I saw happening many times in many of the Agile transitions I was involved with, which was this fear that middle managers had about Agile adoption. Because, in Scrum, there's no middle managers, right? There's the product owner and there's the team. There's the Scrum Master role, which some middle managers might take, but if you just read a little bit about it out there on the web, you will see that it's a bad idea to have a middle manager, meaning a team manager, as the Scrum Master, and there the fear grows. And we need to be aware that in some cases, Agile adoption for some people means, oh my God, they're going to fire me.
Yes, I completely agree. And I'm happy that you mentioned middle managers, Vasco, because I think they're a layer, let's call it a layer in the organization that we often forget in transitions towards an Agile way of working or Scrum, because they are also afraid of their role and their position. And what does this mean for me? If tomorrow we're going to work in a Scrum way with Scrum teams, what is my identity in the organization? What does this mean for me? And paying attention to that I think is very, very important. Yeah.
Exactly. When you think about that kind of situation, of course, handling the fear, listening to people's worries are things you already talked us through that you used in that particular process you were just describing. Are there other tips, other tools about tackling exactly that fear, that fear of the unknown and anxiety about one's own role in that change?
I think that the best tip I can give you is listen, communicate, but communication in a two-way direction. So I give information and I make sure that those people understand exactly what I meant by it. And then coming back to me is listen to what they have to say and what their thoughts are and what their worries are. So my tip is to don't forget to invest time in the conversations with the people. Because what I've seen is we often skip that. We announce the change, we do this big announcement and we give the what and the why, and then we start training people in the new way of working, but we forget to make time for that conversation. And that for me is the biggest tip I could give, is to actually give it time to sink in and to learn and to listen to everyone.
Yeah, give it time. That's a great advice. Serge, it was a great story. Thank you for sharing it.
You're welcome, Vasco.
Leading change is one of the core skills we must acquire, but it is only one of the steps towards our success as Scrum Masters. Tomorrow, on Success Thursday, we will talk about how to define success for the Scrum Master role, we'll cover tips on how to measure your way to that position, and most importantly, how to develop that focus on continuous improvement that is as important for Scrum Masters as it is for teams. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.